So, hi everyone, welcome to our weekly Q&A session. And first of all, I want to apologize. I was running late and also I had technical issues. So, it was supposed to be more than an hour ago, but unfortunately, I wasn't, the technical stuff wasn't helping me today. But thank you, Richard, for your patience
Oh,
and
sure. No
for
problem.
your
Happy to be here.
yeah, and I'm really glad that you are with me today here. So yeah, I think, and we can start already. We already have a couple of questions actually, that came in on YouTube in advance before this Q&A. And of course, anybody watching can ask questions, post your questions. We'll be very happy to answer them. So, the first question that we have received was from Annie. Annie, I go to bed calm and watch TV and notice that I'm getting more tired. After a while, I become restless and nervous and notice that I can't sleep. Then the panic comes and it runs its course. So this is what Annie have wrote us, and so what would you recommend, Annie? What would you, uh, what's going on here actually, and how to meet these panicky feelings?
Yeah. Well, okay. Thanks for the question, Annie. And I noticed that you say you're in the evening, you're feeling sleepy. And then when you go to bed, the sleepiness kind of disappears. It's kind of this disappearing act. And this is so common. It happens in so many of our students. It certainly happened to me in the thick of my insomnia. And so what happens is that when we're doing something in the evening, we may be, watching TV, reading a book, interacting with our partner, whatever. And we're not really thinking about sleep. We're not really trying to sleep. And then we feel sleepy, and that natural sleepiness just comes on. But then we go to bed, and all of a sudden it becomes a performance issue. So we get performance anxiety because we're thinking, okay, now I'm in bed, now I should sleep. So it really just kind of ramps up this effort to sleep. We're not trying to sleep when we're watching TV or doing whatever in the evening, but then we're trying to sleep, and it's this effort that ramps up the anxiety and can even be, kind of a panic attack at this point.
Mm-hmm.
So, well, what do we do about this? Well, the first thing is just knowing that this is a thing. There's not something weird. It doesn't mean that your brain is broken or anything. It's just a thing. It's this performance anxiety. And we actually have a name for this. It's called the Houdini effect because, Houdini was a magician and, he would make things disappear or whatever he did. And so that's what happens. Um, and, you know, I think when we understand that it's a phenomenon, that it happens, it's less scary. And we can use the same tools that we use for any other kind of anxiety associated with sleep. We can have an observer perspective so that we're kind of viewing the anxiety or the sleeplessness kind of from a distance, kind of watching it happen rather than being engaged with it, identifying with it. So that's helpful. The other thing we can do if we're in bed and we can't sleep is start to befriend the wakefulness. So instead of pushing it away and saying, no, I don't want to be awake. Well, yeah, that's understandable. You don't want to be awake. But when we push it away like this or we dwell on it, that just ramps it up. That just amplifies it. So if we can just be with the fact that we're awake, and if after a bit we don't fall asleep, we have the option of getting up, doing something if we want, watching TV. I used to like to watch Seinfeld. I found that just very relaxing, and that really helped me. Doing whatever you want to do, whether it's in bed or out of bed, to try to befriend the wakefulness rather than pushing it away or dwelling on it excessively.
Yeah, absolutely. I totally agree, and it's I made a note like that what you mentioned, that it's the Houdini effect, that Danielle called it like really nicely. It's like it feels like the sleepiness has vanished, but in fact the sleepiness is still there, but it is just masked with hyperarousal. But you really nicely said it, that basically when we go to bed, we now have these expectations that we are going to sleep. And when our brain has this link between being awake and that it is a threat, then of course naturally just sends us these signals of hyperarousal, and we are basically in survival mode, which is not really compatible with peaceful sleep, right? So, and naturally it's very common, that then we feel all the anxiety, that we feel all the panicky feelings, but it is basically just a response to how we started to feel, a response to a neutral event, neutral situation. We are awake at night, but when we think this is wrong, this shouldn't be happening, then of course our body reacts and we start to feel anxiety, we start to feel heart racing, we start to feel the churning in stomach, and all the feelings there, like all these doom and gloom and this panic. And you know the more scared we are, the more panicky we feel. And naturally, um, you know, we kind of like need to understand that however we feel, it is not here to hurt us. It is just a feeling, just an emotion. And instead of trying to avoid it, instead of trying to suppress it, call it in. Because when you show your brain, like, oh, I feel panicky, it's extremely uncomfortable, of course. It's supposed to feel uncomfortable because you're kind of like in a threat, right? But it's a perceived threat, not the real one. But your brain just needs to learn this first, yeah? But it cannot hurt us, even when we feel panicky. And your brain doesn't understand this kind of like difference between real and perceived threat. So Annie, uh, it takes a practice. It takes time to learn how to allow even these all the uncomfortable feelings. During insomnia recovery, there are so many things that we kind of like need to befriend, because or it seems so, like we need to befriend wakefulness, we need to befriend our symptoms, we need to befriend our panicky feelings, and so on and so on and so on. Of course, in its core, it is the fear that we need to befriend, but we kind of like need to be aware, like what this fear consists of. And when we this one big overwhelming feeling cut down to pieces, it is more tangible, more accessible, and at least tiny bit easier for us to befriend the various facets of fear, if that makes sense.
Right.
So that's what I wanted to add. And right, another question that we have got is from Kendra Finnegan. So hi Kendra, any advice with caffeine? I have regular and decaf tea that are the same flavor, and find it creates a bit of a struggle. Which one to choose? I feel if I choose the decaf one, is the sleep effort. And there is a. I'm now feeling pressure to drink the caffeinated tea to show my brain it is safe, even though this is too now feeling like an effort. Essentially, it feels like an effort either way. So yeah, it feels like a conundrum, like to solve, right? So what are your thoughts, Richard?
Yeah. Well, thanks for the question. Is it Kendra? The question? Yeah.
Kendra, yes.
Yes. Thanks, Kendra. Yeah. Good question, because people kind of struggle with the issue of caffeine, whether it's coffee or tea, with sleep. And if you look at mainstream advice on this, they say absolutely no caffeine after 12 o'clock, 3 o'clock. Some people are going to be more sensitive to it. And just as you wouldn't want to have a loud rock band right next to you when you're sleeping, so you wouldn't want to have a pot of coffee or tea just before bed for most people. But this can be overdone. The message you often get out there is even just a tiny bit of caffeine is just going to ruin your sleep. And if it does ruin your sleep, it's probably because you're worried that it will ruin your sleep.
Mhm.
Okay. Now, the issue of a sleep effort, well, what do you do about this? Well, to to stop the caffeine could be viewed as an effort because you're taking out something that you think is keeping you awake. And to continue the caffeine could actually be kind of an effort because you're challenging it. So I think the problem is that we can overthink this. We can think, well, which should I do? It's probably not all that important. Okay, it's probably more important just to think, well, I like my tea, and if I find that it's keeping me awake, well, I'll maybe cut back on it. Um, the whole issue of sleep efforts is very paradoxical, as are a lot of things in the whole world of insomnia. That if we have sleep efforts, this can keep us awake. But if we try to stop the sleep efforts, this is kind of a counter effort, and we're trying to we're stopping the efforts, and that can be viewed as an effort. So I don't have a good answer here except not to think about it too much, to realize that it's kind of a paradox, and just focus more on what you enjoy doing. And if there's a big problem with your sleep, if you're overly sensitive to caffeine, well, cut back on it.
Yeah, absolutely. And naturally, I also try this route of not trying to drink any coffee, any caffeine, really anything that could really just give me to energize me more, because I felt already like the energized bunny. Like I had a lot of energy. I couldn't even sit still because I still felt like I have to do something. But at the same time, I was like that is exhausted. But so I really understand, Kendra, your dilemma. But maybe what you can ask yourself, um, if you don't know how to decide whether it is an effort or not, what is the intention behind it? Whether it's if I do drink it or if I don't drink it, why I want to do it. If the result is still, I want to improve my sleep, I want to make sleep happen, then either way or other, it is a sleep effort.
Mm-hmm.
But uh, if the question is, I want to drink my tea, or either caffeinated or decaffeinated, because I enjoy it, I like it, then this is totally not a sleep effort, and just keep going. And I remember, for example, I used to drink a valerian root tea, right? And like this is said, like, oh, it helps with sleep, it's perfect, and it calms down the nervous system, and so on and so on. And I hated it so much. It is a very specific taste, right? And so I was like, huh. And when I learned about efforts and sleep efforts, and I was literally relieved that I don't have to drink this awful tea. So in order to sleep, anyway, it wasn't working, but at least I was like catching straws. At least mentally, I was like hoping I'm doing something just to solve this situation, right? But uh, you know, so see for yourself, Kendra. Do you want to drink it or not? Then you will see whether it is a sleep effort or not. So I hope we have answered your question, Kendra. And now we have a follow up from Annie. Thank you. You're welcome. I try to befriend all these, but my fear is how I feel and my body hurts, and how I can relieve the pressure of having to sleep so that my body and mind can feel better again.
Mm-hmm.
It comes from sleep deprivation and not from emotional struggle. So, did you get a question, or do you want me to show it again?
No, I got it. Yeah.
Okay, perfect. So the word is
Uh,
yours, Richard.
Well, thanks, Annie. So, yeah, I know the feeling of the body hurting. That's certainly how I felt in the thick of my insomnia. And I would just kind of feel achy all over, or have back pain, or sometimes neck pain. Um, and that seemed to be getting in the way of my sleep. Now, one of the things that happens when we have this hyperarousal, this fight or flight, is that it's preparing us for action, taking action for survival. And of course, our muscles have to be, working. They have to be, primed and tense often. And that's often what causes this pain. So, and yes, to some degree, probably sleep deprivation contributes to that too, because our muscles need to rest. And this is just another manifestation of hyperarousal. There are sometimes physical manifestations, and the physical manifestation could be tight muscles, racing heart, labored breathing, that sort of thing. Sometimes it's just emotional. It's more just the pure anxiety. And so it can run the gamut. So I don't have, a good solution for how to make your body stop hurting, except just to follow, the program that we have generally to to understand what makes sleep happen, to understand the role of hyperarousal, to start trying to move in the direction of befriending wakefulness. Um, and I understand that it sounds like you're having kind of a performance anxiety about, well, you have to get some sleep to get rid of this pain. Well, the more that you kind of push yourself, well, I have to sleep to get rid of this feeling, the more problematic it can become. So, to the extent that you can just um, let go of this kind of feeling of urgency that you have to get rid of, that you have to get sleep to feel better, that's going to make it easier to fall asleep in the long run. Okay. It's
Mm,
gonna happen overnight. It's going to happen over
mhm,
time.
mhm,
But just this whole thing of, oh no, I can't sleep, and just trying to move in the direction of, oh well, I can't
mhm,
sleep. It's not great, but it's not the end of the world. And when we start understanding that it's not the end of the world, that's when the anxiety and hyperarousal starts to ramp down, starts to gradually fade over time.
mhm. Absolutely.
Mhm.
Maybe what I would add it is I would put it into an analogy with, for example, when we are sick, we have a cough at night and we can't sleep, and we feel like I have to get rid of this cough in order to sleep. But you can switch the cough off. You can't just heal your lungs in a moment,
Mhm.
right? So you gotta give it a time. You need to allow it. You can be upset, you can be angry at your cough, but it's not going to help you. The only way it is to allow it to be there with you and not criticizing it. But when we are sick, like common sickness, like flu, we are not so self-critical. But when it comes to insomnia, we are so incredibly critical towards ourselves. Like, oh my goodness, why I can't sleep? Why am I still hurting? But when we are sick, we don't even ask this question, why am I hurting? Why my body aches? Because it is obvious, but it is obvious even here when you have the knowledge, when you have the understanding. Of course, your body aches because you've been in a struggle for such a long time. And eventually, what matters the most is the self kindness towards yourself, Annie. Be kind to yourself and allow even being awake at night, allow even the physical pains. I know is awful. I hated it so much. But alongside all these pains and aches, you try to do your best during the day to go about your day, to stick to your plans as much as possible. And if you can't, it's still okay. But uh, attach um, less meaning to sleep so you can lift the pressure. We also, in our program, we also talk about secondary attachments. the primary attachments is sleep. Naturally, we want to sleep. But when we attribute to sleep so many responsibilities, so many things, our sleep is responsible for feeling well, for our work performance, for our relationships, for our simply. But when we try our best to loosen all these attachments, when we see that, for example, you maybe had a day, Annie, where you didn't sleep so well, but you still had an okayish day when your body didn't hurt so much. Maybe this is one piece of evidence that could help you to release this connection between sleep is responsible for how I feel. And this is the way how to lift the pressure. And the less pressure you feel, the easier the sleep comes. So I hope this is clear, Annie, and good luck. Now we have a question from Siri Jada. Hi, it's the fear of the next day and headaches, fatigue. So, what would you share with Siri regarding the fear of the next day?
Yeah, well, as you were just saying, Veronica, that there are a lot of things we can be afraid of. We can be afraid of not sleeping that particular night, or the secondary things like, how am I going to feel the next day? How am I going to feel the next week? How am I going to feel? How is my health going to be in the next 5 years? People worry about this too. Now, it turns out there's not really a connection between insomnia and bad health outcomes, but a lot of people are afraid of this. So Siri, you're talking about the fear of the next day, the headaches, the fatigue. Yeah, I mean, fatigue is something that we experience the next day if we don't sleep or if we have insomnia. Now, one of the things to keep in mind, though, is that there are kind of two kinds of fear. There's the let's say two kinds of fatigue. There's the physical fatigue from not sleeping, but there's also an emotional aspect to fatigue. There's the worrying about the fatigue. There's the struggling with the fatigue, struggling with the whole issue of insomnia, and that adds another layer. So you have the physical fatigue, and then on top of that, a lot of people with insomnia have the emotional fatigue too, and that actually makes it quite a bit worse. It can make it quite a bit worse. We don't have control over the pure physical fatigue. If you only sleep 2 hours, you're going to be tired the next day. But if you dwell on it, if you worry about it, if you think about it over and over, that's just going to ramp up the emotional aspect of it. Now, take two people off the street. Let's say you're doing this, study, and one's a good sleeper and the other person has insomnia, and you put them in a lab and you force them to stay awake all night. Well, the next morning, you ask them, well, how are you feeling? Well, you've asked the first person, the normal season. Well, yeah, I'm tired. I'm tired. I didn't sleep last night. But if you ask the second person, the person with insomnia, very often they'll say, oh, it's the end of the world. It's terrible. I can't stand it. It's just ruining my day totally. So that's the emotional fatigue. So we do have some control over the emotional fatigue just by realizing that it's a factor and realizing that we don't have to dwell on it and just kind of have it like in our face, this whole fatigue thing. And so that can take away a good part of the fatigue. Siri, you also mentioned headaches. And, again, there are a lot of physical manifestations often associated with insomnia, with hyperarousal, and headaches can certainly be part of this. And again, a lot of that has to do with the hyperarousal. Of course, nothing we say here is medical advice. If you have headaches, and they persist, definitely talk to your doctor about that. But they can certainly be a manifestation of the hyperarousal. So it's not anything different from the other manifestations of hyperarousal, the muscle tightness, the racing heart, all these things. So just realizing that they're all under the same umbrella of hyperarousal or anxiety can be helpful. It's not something new or different or something you have to have some separate special solution for.
Mm-hmm. Thank you so much for sharing, Richard. And I will jump right to another question that I can start to answer. And hi, is it true that acceptance isn't something that can be achieved directly, but more like something that we inevitably come to after sufficient experiential learning? I agree. And yes, acceptance comes naturally, especially with such a challenging thing as is insomnia is, because when we struggle, when we feel so fatigued, when our body is hurting and aching, this is not something that we would enjoy, that we would like, and it is something that we need to learn to accept. And uh, and it is true that the experience in itself is not transferable. I can experience something, I can talk to Coach Richard about it, but it doesn't have to experience it in the same way, or he can, but he wouldn't even believe me what I was saying. For example, a statement, I can enjoy I can enjoy wakefulness now. I spent years struggling with wakefulness. I spent years of hoping and praying for sleep. And if somebody would tell me, hey, even if you are feel like you are awake all night long, you still do sleep. And somebody would tell me also that one day you will enjoy being awake at night. I wouldn't believe this person, right? I have to kind of like open the window of tolerance, just kind of like approach it with curiosity, and to have my own experiences that even in the middle of the night, I don't have to struggle. I don't have to feel completely beaten up. And yes, it totally comes with experience. And one thing that I learned about experience, and I think it's important to know, to say, is we don't have to like it to accept it. Yeah,
Mhm.
if you would ask anybody, would you like to go through insomnia all over again? Probably not. So would be no. Thank you for the experience. I learned a lot, but I wouldn't enjoy it, right? So you don't have to like it, but if this happens, if I ever have in my life again as a speed bump, I'm more likely to accept it because I know what is going on. I know that I have been through it, and the acceptance is more accessible to me, if that makes sense. So I hope I have answered your question. And we have another question from Hugo. Hello, I'm afraid I will not wake up, and that makes my body start sweating. I start to feel sick, like I'm going to throw up. My body goes into alert mode, and I don't know what to do. Any recommends? Any recommendations? So this sounds to me like somniphobia. Am I right? But okay, Richard, do you have any thoughts?
Yeah, well, thanks. Yeah, I do. Yeah, thanks for the question, Hugo. I mean, some people do have fear that they won't wake up. And again, there are just a lot of different fears that we can
Yeah.
have around sleep issues. And fear of the next day, fear of the next year, fear of health, and so forth. Fear of how we will function at work and relationships. And
Mhm.
one of the things that some people are afraid of is that somehow they won't wake up. That when when we're in survival mode, I mean, we're worried about if we're going to survive, if we're going to die in our sleep.
Mhm.
And again, this is the fear center that is ramped up, that's looking for things to be afraid of. And when we have this fear, it can be kind of channeled into different areas. Now, you know, uh, I've never heard of anyone, dying in their sleep or not waking up because they have insomnia. That just doesn't happen. And so, how to deal with it? Um, Again, knowing that it's the fearful part, it's your anxiety speaking. It's not kind of the voice of reality. It's not like, you have some disease and you're going to die in your sleep. Um, and just realizing that anxiety can have all these different manifestations, and that this is not realistic.
Mhm.
Um, and we treat this every kind of fear kind of the same way as we've been talking about in the session. You know, we don't catastrophize about it. Instead of saying, "Oh no," it's a, "Oh well, oh that's interesting. I have this fear that I won't wake up," and just kind of being kind of curious about it rather than catastrophizing about it. "Oh, that's interesting. I'm having this fear," and then not dwelling on it. Instead of having this fear and thinking about it for the next hour, which I would, this sort of thing I would do in the thick of my insomnia, just letting go of it and saying, "Okay, well, I'm going to think about something else now." So when we have fears, whatever they are, we just non-reactively acknowledge them and then move on to other things.
Thank you for sharing, Richard. And I totally agree with what you say. Basically, it's like the fear center is ramping up and is looking for threats, like you mentioned. And it's, Hugo, naming those fears makes them more tangible, makes them more like known to us. So if something is more tangible, it's we can name it, we can cut it down to pieces, like I like to say that okay, so what does my fear consist of? It consists of my body is sweating, I'm starting to feel sick, I'm going to throw up, I'm in alert mode. All these things, when you bring the conscious awareness to each of these symptoms that are running in your body, you can even make a connection with it. Like you can place your hand on your chest and just stay with it with your full attention, with the curiosity. How does it feel in my body? Without adding more fear, without adding more anxiety, without just with acknowledging it, right? Like, I'm afraid I will not wake up. And this is a fear. My brain is now just, it is the center of the focus of my brain. And very often, what happens when we accept one of the fears, your brain is like, oh, but how about the somniphobia? How about the fear of falling asleep or not waking up or not falling asleep or whatever idea your brain can come up and bring literally a hyper focus on this kind of fear. And again, you might still experience the same emotions, same sensations, same feelings. It's still the same. Just accept it, allow it, let it be there. Because with all this acceptance and allowance, you teach your brain, whatever you throw at me, I'm safe. Physically, I'm safe. Mentally, I might not feel safe, right? But this is not reality. The reality is I am physically safe. And when you teach your brain in this way, like, hey, even though I feel this way, it's okay. I'm not afraid of it, even if this still feels uncomfortable. Uh, then your brain will understand, like, aha, we are okay here, we are safe, and it will not send the same alert over and over again. So, Hugo, I hope we have answered your question. And we have a follow-up question, last question to answer from, I can read these signs, I'm sorry. So, hi, I guess my problems are not so urgent, so if there are more questions, so feel free to go others first. But I want to ask that it's acceptance more like, since I have zero control over sleep and recovery, I might as well give up because this is what I feel recently. I want to ask that. Would you like to answer, Richard?
Okay, I'm trying to kind of parse this question here. I want to ask, is acceptance more like that since I have zero? Yes, it's true. We don't have control over sleep, and
Yeah.
the speed of recovery. I might as well give up. Well, yeah. I mean, I think that's kind of the whole crux of the thing. Since we don't have control over sleep, don't don't try to force yourself to do
Yeah.
anything.
Yeah.
Um,
It's like maybe what comes to my mind, it's like because sometimes when we say I'm giving up, it may feel very defensive. Like I'm giving up, like in this kind of like with negative charge.
right,
But
right,
when we also can give up in a way, I'm giving up the control, and I am surrendering to whatever is
right.
happening.
Letting
I'm
go. Yeah,
Yes,
yeah.
exactly. I'm
Mhm.
just letting go. And this is more neutral than giving up, like, this is a disaster, I will never improve,
Right,
right?
right,
This is
right,
something different. But when we are surrendering, when we are letting go of the control, then this is in a positive way. We are finally kind of like understanding that we can control sleep. Because regarding the experiential learning, I had to go through the experience of trying XYZ things and efforts and sleep hygienes and pills in order to understand there is nothing I can do in order to produce sleep regularly every night. In this sense, it's I let go of all the efforts. I just surrendered. Okay, whatever happens, happens. And alongside this, I learned whatever is happening, I'm still safe, if that makes sense. Anything to add, Richard?
Um, I guess the other thing about acceptance is that it's kind of on a continuum. And when you're trying to accept something, don't expect yourself to just flip a switch and
Yes.
you were non-accepting, all of a sudden you're accepting. It's a gradual movement in that direction. And the way I like to think of it is you become less intolerant of these feelings or these thoughts over time. And then the as you decrease your as you increase your tolerance for it, finally it kind of blends into acceptance.
hmm Okay, so thank you so much, Richard, for answering the questions today. Thank you, everybody, for sending your questions in. If you enjoyed our Q&A, please give a like. And if you enjoyed the wisdom of our coach Richard, feel free to reach out to him. I will post a link to one-on-ones. And right, so thank you so much, and I'll see you next time. And with Coach Richard some
All
other
right.
time. Bye
Bye,
bye. Take
everyone. Take care.